recently went to Gamescom, which is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, game dev and games industry events that there are. And there's a few things you need to know about these events. And basically the first thing that I want you to do is not go into them just blindly and hoping for the best. I've been noticing a lot because I go to a lot of like game dev events, like very small ones with like 20 people, up into something like a Gamescom, which is like 250,000 people or something this year. And not every developer is great at going to them. And it's fine, I understand that. But I am someone, my background isn't like, I didn't study game development. I actually went into sales. I sold like data center stuff, which meant that I had to talk to a lot of people for my job and like go to these networking events, make connections, things like that. So I figured that in this video, I would go over a bit more about what are like these networking events for game developers and how should you approach them? Because I see plenty of developers, they are just like, they go to these events, but they don't have a set like action plan and they end up just walking around for 3 days and sure, it's fun, but they're not really getting the most value out of it. And these events can get pricey depending on like the scale. I personally find Gamescom to be one of the cheapest events you can go to, especially for someone like me who lives about a 2-hour drive away from Gamescom. But for example, if you have to go to GDC, which would mean that we would have to get flights that are like halfway across the world, we'd need to get some very expensive hotels and just the tickets itself also aren't cheap, then you don't want to waste all of that money that you're spending on these events. So in this video, I just want to go over how do you prepare for these events, what should you keep in mind, and how do you make the most of it? And when should you maybe also just not go? And I think there is one step zero, and that is that you need to leave the house. I think you first need to understand that if you want to be a successful indie developer, you can't just do it from in your room and like never leaving the house. We're not in 2020 anymore, COVID has long gone, and if you're looking to get anything done, anything that is like serious business and not just like some small project that you like need a little artist for, you need to do business face to face or at least not on Discord. If I'm being honest, a lot of game developers and like beginning game developers are almost terminally online on things like Discord and are like constantly chatting in like different groups and like finding people to collaborate with. And that's good, but you're never gonna find a solid publisher that way. You're never going to find a like solid long-term like professional contact that way. Sure, some are on Discord, but the ones that are high quality usually are also on completely different platforms that are more professional and like go to these kinds of events to showcase their work. And that's why I think that you should go to these events. If you can afford it, go to these events, and there is a lot of value to get there. Because also people are just simply much better at like doing business with someone that they've seen in real life, that they know is an actual person and isn't just like someone they can't trust basically. By going there physically and talking to someone, they immediately get that level of trust that could take like months even of just Discord, and that like through Discord you maybe won't ever be able to build up to that level of trust even. Okay, so you've decided you're gonna venture out into the world. Perfect. The next question then is, what are you gonna do? Now this question depends a lot on what kind of event you're going for. When I'm going to like one of the smaller Belgian meetups that is just like a come hang out and like talk to each other, then the plan usually isn't like too extensive. It's maybe something like get some feedback on some ideas I've been having, talk about other people and like what are they working on, get inspiration like that, learn what other people are doing. But for example, when going to a event like Gamescom, a lot of studios go there with either they wanna showcase their game to the world in like the consumer area where like people can go to the indie arena at Gamescom and like play tons of indie games, or they're maybe looking for a publisher, so they're more in the business area, and in which case they have planned like all of their publisher meetings like months in advance. This is something that we didn't do, so ideally you'd have like publisher meetings, but a lot of these like big networking events, they have something like a meet to match or some other meeting system where like months before the event even starts, you can already see like who's all exhibiting and who can we go out to, and you like send them messages in advance like, hey, can we book a meeting at this time to talk about like whatever my new epic game is going to be? And you can like show it and pitch it and things like that. We didn't do that. What we did instead for Gamescom is our goal was to figure out how does Gamescom work. So that's also why I'm making this video, because now I realize what did we do wrong about going to these events. And I've been talking to plenty of other developers who did like approach it correctly. As well as we wanted to create that YouTube video that you should have seen last week about asking like 100 game developers if it's worth getting a degree. That's also something that we can only really make on an event that scale. Depending on the event, some other things could be like attending talks. So this would be if you go to a GDC or if you're going to a DevCom or a Unity Unite, which we're going, by the way. So if you're going to Unity Unite in Amsterdam, you might see us. Or maybe you want to just learn more about new industries. So for example, on Gamescom, there were plenty of people. For example, we had like some like ad hoc meetings about localization, because we did localization in Forge Industry, but we didn't do it well. So maybe you just want to learn about this more like niche subset of like the game dev world. Something else could be like an Exola with how they do like advertising and in-app purchases and like monetizing your games. These are also very interesting things to learn about, but you should have a key focus point before you go to the event, and prepare for that as well. If you're going to an event with your main point being to talk to publishers, well, be sure you have your pitch deck ready, or you have some prototype, or you have a Steam Deck, anything, or some videos to show to that publisher. If you want to like attend talks, plan them out in advance. Figure out what is your key learning going to be of like this event. Or if you want to showcase, then well, make sure that your booth is all set up and you've thought about extra incentives and ways to convert people. We're actually planning a video in like a month or so after we've done our main events, where we talk a bit more about showcasing your game on events such as a Gamescom or maybe some smaller ones as well. So if that's something you're interested in, be sure to subscribe down below as well. But generally, don't like overstress it. Also, if you're going to like the smaller events like the Hangouts, there's no problem in just having fun and talking to people. You can never plan these events 100%. There's always gonna be some like cool, like, oh, I didn't know this was gonna happen moments, and that's fine as well. But do have a primary objective when you go to an event. When you go to these events, you're also not gonna be the only person there. And that's why I wanna dedicate this like section now about it's like small talk. It's how do you talk to other developers? Sounds really dumb, but honestly, some of you people, you do need a little refresher on this, I feel. Don't talk about politics. Just never really, when you're in a business setting, talk about politics. I've been to events where suddenly, you know, I usually try to hop around between like different groups. And I think like 2 or 3 groups of like developers and people were just talking about like the local Belgian politics. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, this is a very, very risky like area to talk about, because you're most likely gonna have different views and offend other people. This is also usually completely unrelated to the main reason of why the event is there, like connecting game developers or getting feedback, things like that. And you're just not really getting anywhere. Talking about politics at any networking event, even like at your family dinner or whatever, never do it. It's always a bad idea. And I don't think you should be too busy with that. Another thing you should never do is talk shit about other developers. Maybe I do feel like I am much better than other developers. Maybe I am, but never say it in front of other people. You can think it about yourself, but don't ever talk shit about some other developers like, oh, their launch was horrible. Did you see that? Yeah, they deserved it. They did no marketing. Don't be like that. Be a nice person around other people, because these things always come back, because maybe you're not even saying it to the person in general, but these rumors always go around, and especially in a community like game development, that is, in my opinion, generally very supportive and also very social. Everyone knows everyone, especially in like the smaller country level circles. You will like, at some point it will come back to bite you. You can't just be a nice person, you know? And usually this leads to much more things as well. And then lastly, talk to everyone. As I said, game dev is really nice, and honestly, I've talked to people that are way out of my league, but I just still act like I'm a normal person, and generally, they're also quite nice. When you go to an event, no matter how big or small it is, don't get like one group that you talk to the entire evening, because then you've ruined the purpose of that event generally, and you may just as well have hung out with that one person for like another evening. Instead, try to hop between all different groups. Keep up to, I think, at most 15-20 minutes of conversation with one person is like my general guideline. It allows you to go relatively deep already into like certain topics, but you also have a lot of time still throughout an evening or even multiple days to go and talk to other people. Some interactions will only take like 3-4 minutes, fine as well. But talk to multiple people, learn about their perspectives, and try to also get outside of your comfort zone. I've noticed very easily, and I'm just gonna quickly throw some of my teammates under the bus again. William and Jamie, are both developers. And they're not the best at these networking events because they have this tendency to float towards other developers and just like start circle jerking about like JavaScript frameworks or like some coding thing. And yeah, it's cool, but it's not gonna progress like your game, things like that. Whereas on Gamescom, we just walked up to people and started talking to them. We didn't know who they were. Turns out some were like big shot CEOs at like publishing companies. Some were also just really small indie dev teams. But all of these have some value to add and they're all really nice. Nobody really turned us down. So that was really good as well. And then one last thing as well is after the event is over, send some follow-up emails to like the people that were like the most interesting or that you feel like you want to keep the conversation going. Maybe there's somebody who you talked about a game concept that you want to like get some more information about, or maybe you talk to a publisher and they're like, yeah, maybe we're interested, like let us know. Even if, for example, we don't have a build yet, we still send out like an email to just be like, hey, thanks for the chat with us at Gamescom, and like expect to hear some more stuff from us in like 2 months or whatever. That's fine as well. But this already builds up some rapport. This makes sure that they don't forget you. Stalk them on LinkedIn, add them as connections there. Basically try to carry forward as much of the momentum as an event like Gamescom or another event can have and build upon that. Anyways, that's really all I had to say. Are you someone who often goes to game dev events? I know some countries it's harder than others. I think in Belgium it's pretty okay still. But for example, some people from like Saudi Arabia came up to me where there's like no game dev scene at all. I'm very interested about your experiences. Apart from that, if you're new here, we're game developers. We've made our own game, we're making more games. And we also make these videos twice a week where we talk about game design, we talk about our experiences, we make some devlogs, things like that. So if that's something that you're interested in, be sure to go ahead down below, give us a like, and also subscribe, as like I said, you get this content twice a week. That's all I had to say. Thanks for watching and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!